The adults are back in charge. Oh, sorry, did I say in charge? I meant in the shower with Ashley Biden. But even those inexplicably okay with the idea of having a president whose daughter can accurately describe the sensation of what his junk feels like on her lower back are just a wee bit tongue-tied at the developments of the past 48 hours.
Biden is giving $6 billion to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, just as when Obama sent the Iranian regime pallets of cash for hostages in the dark of night. Remember? Plane loads of cash. Biden's ransom payment will be immediately used to stoke violence, bloodshed, and mayhem throughout the Middle East and all around the world, costing countless innocent lives.
I got to start first with surprise attacks in Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that Israel is now at war with Hamas. In fact, the militants lost thousands and thousands of rockets at Israel earlier today, hoping to overwhelm their defense system there.
To you, an advisor to Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei is saying that Iran supports Palestinians' attack on Israel. So clearly, Iran going on to extend its support to Palestinians in this conflict, which seems to be escalating.
Mr. President, was there an intelligence failure in the lead up to this attack? Mr. President, can you tell us what TV asked you specifically for support?
Anyone else old enough to remember 4 years of no new wars and at least one nuclear one on the Korean Peninsula explicitly avoided? Fortunately, there's no need for alarm, but this Gaza goat fuck would sure be fucking frightening if we didn't have such an articulate, mentally composed, in no way Alzheimer's afflicted archlich as both purveyor of foreign policy and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Now, if you don't mind me, I'll be closing my garage and revving the engine of my Firebird for unrelated reasons entirely. Watching Biden attempt to mollify tensions in the Middle East is like watching Michael J. Fox diffusing landmines. I'd sooner trust Sonny with a fifth of Jack and a Jeep Grand Cherokee. I mean, why even have a war if you can't have a forever war? It's like buying a ticket to Six Flags and spending all day on the fucking teacup ride. And hey, thanks to Biden shipping, $4 to $5 billion to Iran about 18 minutes before the shooting started, shooting which appeared to feature American military rifles matching the description of those lost in Palooka Joe's rip-roaring retreat from Afghanistan. The bodies weren't even room temperature by the time Iran gave Hamas the Nintendo seal of quality. And sure, you can think of this negatively, but every black cloud has a silver lining. Think of it. After untold eons of the IRS obfuscating the issue of a federal fucking audit, at long last, we have a ready demonstration of exactly what our taxes are paying for. Don't think of it as a terrorist action. Think of it as a Kalashnikov cashier receipt. And speaking of ISIS, Ilhan Omar took to Twitter to clarify the position of both her party and the pander-in-chief. Quote, "I condemn the horrific acts we're seeing unfold today in Israel against children, women, the elderly, and the unarmed people who are being slaughtered and taken hostage by Hamas. Such senseless violence will only repeat the back-and-forth cycle we've seen, which we cannot allow to continue. We need to call for de-escalation and ceasefire. I will keep advocating for peace and justice throughout the Middle East." Scathing reprimand, Ilhan. That should make for an awkward Thanksgiving family dinner. I'd ask what your steady fella thinks of that one, but I hate to see siblings fight. Most boomers find a date on Facebook. This bitch is using the family photo album. Of course, boomer has a very different meaning in Ilhan Omar's neck of the woods. What does this mean for the rest of the world? Put it this way. If I'm Xi Jinping, I'm already picking out hammer and sickle wallpaper for the presidential mansion in Taiwan. Though that particular Republiophage may have to be backburnered until, next year, when Taiwanese elections will provide the necessary pretext for liberation invasion. And speaking of which, let's see what the captain from fucking C-Lab has to say.
But I also believe this is what happens when we have leading voices like Donald Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Ron DeSantis signaling retreat from America's role as leader of the free world. What happened in Ukraine was an unprovoked invasion by Russia. What happened this weekend was an unprovoked invasion by Hamas into Israel. And I really believe now more than ever, both the debate within the Republican Party and the debate within America is whether or not we're going to once again stand without apology as the leader of the free world, as the arsenal of democracy.
Of all the putrid global Bolshevik buzzwords in the monoparty lexicon, I do believe calling America the arsenal of democracy takes best of fucking show. And before anyone points out that term dates back to World War II, an association with America's first proper socialist president is not the glittering goddamn endorsement you think it is. Worse still, as has become almost rote in contemporary discourse, came a disinformation infusion all over social media. Videos from a damn decade ago commingled with actual acts of unconscionable violence to cultivate a fog of war so thick if you were out of syrup you could slather it over your fucking waffles. But when you cut through the haze, one fact remains immodifiable. As a rule, when the entire media and political class all agree on a singular course of action, particularly one arrived at inside of an hour, you should probably do the exact opposite. Everyone is in perfect accord on the course of action, and yet everyone simultaneously admits to not having the faintest fucking clue what ISIS and Hamas are thinking. Well, gee, Crenshaw and company, have you thought of marching your ass down to the US-Mexico border and asking them? The border is open wider than Ann Coulter's legs around a black comedian. I'm Razor Fist. Keep your powder dry, and God fucking speed. I'm just going to talk out of character, mainly because in the hours following this tragedy, which unfurled over the past weekend, a lot of people had hot takes, a lot of people had jokes. I was foremost among them. And the reactions to that kind of vacillated between followers of mine expressing some kind of jaded sensibility, somewhat world-weary of the situation and of the never-ending wars, and then other people repudiating the very idea that you would engage in humor during a tragedy of this scale. And half the reason I'm making this is because I have to say unequivocally, I will not have my tendency toward humor or attempting to lend levity to something this profoundly tragic be policed by some a-hole in an armchair deigning to decree from on high what my conduct is to be, with no sanction on my behavior, save that he's occasionally clicked on my videos or tweets. The last time I checked, World War II, in terms of pure human lives lost, was perhaps the greatest single tragedy to befall all mankind. I don't remember stand-up comedians like Bob Hope pausing for even a moment to try to put smiles on soldiers' faces or actively lampoon a tragedy that was actually unfurling as he was lampooning it. I've done missions work and volunteer work in areas with at least as much violence as we're witnessing. And the reason why I say that is, if you're asking or even care, I will happily confess to being jaded at our feckless political elites. I will happily confess to being jaded at the rapidly dimming prospects for our political system's survival. But I pray for the people who have fallen victim to this. And I confess no such sensibility about the human tragedy we're witnessing right now. Nor, I suppose, for the retaliatory tragedy to follow. The victims for whom may well even be ourselves. Godspeed.